Wednesday at 8:35 hours, join Paul St. Ndovi on the SDGs and You radio and television program as he looks at SDG number 4, which is quality education and the strides that Zambia is making in achieving it. Follow us live on the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook page, YouTube and Twitter. Parliament Television, bringing Parliament closer to you.
To my heart, this land founded on freedom, grounded in justice, love for all mankind. It's a land where every person is born free, and it's a land of peace, of love and unity. This land, Zambia, land of the strong, home of the brave, our land, Zambia, free men we stand in this land. In this land, beauty all around, there is no other. Love like a mother's love for her child. Oh, let nobody come and take our peace away. Let no one take what is meant for all to share. This land, Zambia, land of the strong, home of the brave, our land, Zambia, free men we stand in this land. Ooh, I believe the better days are surely coming, and I believe that we can make it through this night if we lay pride aside, put a trust in God. Learn to love each other. You're my sister, you're my brother. Right or wrong, together we are stronger. So don't let nothing tear us apart. Zambia,
Zambia. Even saying the word is a multi-sensory experience. It somehow captures something of the essence of this special place in the warm heart of southern Africa. Take in the mighty Zambezi River, the majestic Victoria Falls that form Zambia's natural southern border, and the national parks overflowing with wildlife. Immerse yourself in the fast-growing towns and cities, teeming with history, light, and life. Then visit the vast lakes that seem to touch the stars and engage with a plethora of different ethnic groups, cultures, and languages. Together, they make up the intricately woven fabric of this remarkable country. To visit Zambia is to begin a love affair that will never be exhausted, and unlike any that you have ever experienced before. For all the superlatives that man has used in his attempts to describe Victoria Falls, none are able to do this incredible natural wonder justice. You have to see it for yourself. It is a truly awe-inspiring experience. Livingston, once Zambia's capital, and the Zambian side of the falls have become a mecca for discerning adventure tourists. Peer into the abyss from Devil's Pool at the edge of the falls. Career down the powerful rapids from Batoka Gorge in a whitewater raft. Bungee jump from the historic Victoria Falls Bridge. Or fly over the falls on a flight of angels. Whatever activity you choose, you'll be left with a renewed appreciation for the sheer might of nature. Kafue National Park is amongst the biggest in Africa.
Parliament Television and Parliament Radio. Favorite program is back, and this is the SDG and You radio program. It is a program that looks at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And today, we look at goal number 4, which is quality education. We know that in Zambia, SDG 4 is well articulated under Development Outcome 1 of the 8th National Development Plan, with key interventions implemented by the Ministry of Education through the National Education Policy and Education Act of 2011. Today, we find out the strides Zambia is making in realizing SDG number 4, which is quality education. It covers multiple dimensions of education, training, and development. It also addresses issues of accessibility, equity, and quality. My guest on today's program, I do have Ms. Alice Saili, who is from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and she is team leader in Zambia. Ms. Saili, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Paulson, and thank you. Good morning to you, listeners and viewers.
I also have Dr. Christopher Kalila, MP, who is Lukulu East Constituency Member of Parliament, and he is the chairperson of the Committee of All-Party Parliamentary Caucus on Sustainable Development Goals. Doc, thank you so much for finding time and just share with us on this very important goal, which is goal number 4.
Thank you very much, Paulson. It is always an honor to speak to our citizens, particularly through this forum, which you have been providing over the last couple of weeks, and also to be among my colleagues, Brenda and Alice. Thank you.
We also have Ms. Brenda Nyirenda, who is Lundazi Central Member of Parliament, just to be with us and just share with us how her constituency is doing in realizing goal number 4. Ms. Nyirenda, thank you so much for finding time and joining us on the SDG and You program.
Good morning, viewers. Percent, good morning. Alice and Dr. Kalila, good morning. It's good to share, especially on something which is deeply upon my heart. You know that I'm an educator. Once a teacher, you'll always be a teacher. And I'm happy that today we are talking about education. Good morning, Lundazi. Thank you so much.
There you have it. Our listeners and viewers out there will be given an opportunity to be part and parcel of today's program, where you'll be able to send us your text messages. Again, today, we're unable to get your live calls. We're still experiencing some technical hitches here, but we rely on you sending us text messages, and You better still, you can utilize our Facebook page, which is the National Assembly of Zambia. Like that page and let us know where you're watching us from. If you have any question concerning quality education, which is goal number 4. My sign language interpreter for today is Chola Kauman. The number that we'll be using for SMSs is 078 772801. Let me start with you, Ms. Saili. Briefly tell us about UNESCO. What is your role? What do you do?
Okay. Thanks, Paulson. So, as the team leader of UNESCO in Zambia, I'm responsible for overseeing and ensuring that UNESCO's programs are designed of high quality, the implementation and monitoring and also reporting is being done efficiently and effectively. In addition, I'm also responsible for all the high-level internal and external engagements for UNESCO in Zambia, and this includes engaging with government, with cooperating partners, with local and international actors who are working in the education sector. But we also realize that you need to take a multi-sectorial approach to achieve inclusive and equitable education for all, which is what we're talking about now. So in trying to achieve this, we work with sectors beyond education. So we work with the health sector, we work with teams at the gender department, we work with the Department of Traditional and Chiefs Affairs. We work with Ministry of Community, as well, because we need to take a multi-sectoral approach to be able to achieve quality education for all.
So what kind of programs do you work on here in Zambia as UNESCO, just for the sake of our viewer and our listener?
Thanks, Boston. So in terms of the programs that we work on, we do have programs that we support the Ministry of Education to ensure that teachers are trained, are well trained, and able to deliver quality education to the learners. So we do support teacher training programs. We also support the Ministry of Education in the development and design of high quality materials for learners and for teachers, and this includes the books that learners are able to use in the classrooms. In addition to that, we support the ministry in providing normative guidance, so issues around policy, resource mobilization for the education sector to ensure that they're able to deliver education to the public.
Okay. How would you rate Zambia in terms of realizing goal number 4? How are we doing as a country from the UNESCO perspective?
Thanks, Paulson. That's a very good question. So I want to mention that even before COVID-19, which actually worsened the situation in terms of achieving SDG 4, Zambia, like many other countries, were already off track in achieving the targets for SDG 4. But COVID-19 actually worsened the situation because we do know that learners were out of school for a very long time and they didn't have access to education, and that also brought in other issues because resources were diverted to be able to address the COVID situation that many countries faced. Coming to Zambia, there are challenges around achieving those targets. Like I've indicated, this is not only unique to Zambia, many other countries are facing this challenge. But we do note the commitment that government is making to ensure that, we gain some traction and also try to catch up on meeting the targets. This includes the revised, Education for All policy that has seen an increase in the number of children accessing education. And this speaks directly to the goal on SDG 4, which is around universal access to primary and secondary school education. So that free education policy then has helped a number of children in Zambia to be able to access education, and this includes those who are vulnerable because there are no fees to be paid. In addition to that, we did see, the unprecedented recruitment of teachers, 30,496 in 2022. That was quite a good and high number of teachers that were employed. So that also will go a long way in reducing the teacher-pupil ratio, which has been consistently high for many years. And we know that there are also pronouncements to actually increase the number of teachers again because there's a recruitment that will happen soon. So we have seen very, very positive commitments from government.
Okay. You can hold on the positive strides that you've noted as UNESCO that is being done by the Zambian government. Let me shift and engage Dr. Kalila and Ms. Nyirenda. How are you responding to ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong opportunities for all in your respective constituents?
Okay. Thank you very much, President. As you know, as a caucus, it rhymes very well with the role that we do as members of parliament, chiefly, obviously, to approve the national budget, and in this particular case, we are always interested to know how much money is gone to education, how much money is gone to health, how much money is just gone to various sectors of the Zambian economy, which mirrors the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It is our business nationally. In line with our mandate, we make laws. I don't have to repeat this story, but specifically to answer your question with regard to our constituencies, certainly we are doing a lot, and I'm sure Brenda will also come and chip in. You know that the flagship policy of the New Dawn government currently is in the education sector. And also, education is one of the bedrocks of the 17 goals. And this free education policy, which Alice has talked about, when you marry it with the Enhanced Constituency Development Fund, it has created a lot of opportunities for members of parliament to complement and supplement government efforts in providing for education. In this regard, many of us are responding by building a lot of classroom blocks because we have noted an increase in the number of learners who have since returned to school. So you will see that if you went to Lukulu, most of our projects are basically in the education sector, where we are rolling out construction 1x3 classroom blocks. But not only that, one of the targets of SDG number 4 is also to ensure that there is access to skills training. Okay, and you will see that within the CDF, there is money ring-fenced specifically for skills and vocational training and so on and so forth. And many of us actually buy guidance. Okay, we are required to ensure that we enroll a lot of our youths, a lot of learners in our constituencies, and pay for them to access skills training and vocational training, which we have been doing. It's not a choice, actually. That tells you the resolve of government to ensure that this target is met. Also, we are ensuring that we electrify a lot of these schools. Now, the importance of electrifying these schools, particularly in the rural areas, is that then it can afford lifelong learning or night school, so to speak. And this is where we are heading to in our constituency once we electrify some of these schools either by solar or connecting them to the grid and so on and so forth. I'm also aware that under the Ministry of Youth and Sports, there's a policy to build a skills training center in each district, and that has not really happened in all the districts, but there's also an opportunity for us, members of parliament, to actually build these skills training centers in these constituencies. So these are some of the practical examples that I'm able to give you on how we are responding. Just one more. In my case, when I took over, we had about 4 secondary schools. Now we are 20 out of the CDF, and we are only second to Mongo. Now, out of this, we have seen another situation, particularly for the girl learners, because there are very few boarding facilities. In fact, there's only 1 or 2. So most of them have to rent in the villages and so on. So we are now thinking of putting up boarding facilities or boarding houses built out of, so that they can move out of these places, which exposes them to some of the negative effects which go with society and girls. And I don't have to elaborate that, but I'm sure Alice will talk about that. So we'll give a chance to bring that now.
Honorable Nyerinda.
Thank you so much. Actually, I just want to say whatever my colleague has already alluded to, I adopt them as my own, because building of classroom blocks is definitely responding to the demand that has come. However, I want to give a view of my constituency, which is in the borderline. You'll find that most of our children, a long time ago, they were crossing the borders to go and learn from Malawi, because most of the places like Gumbilwe, Dunduzu, and these other areas, they never had classroom blocks. So immediately when I was elected as a member of parliament, because I used to traverse the constituency, I realized that our children were not benefiting from the free education which was being offered. Hence, I embarked on building classroom blocks in the border areas so that our children could be able to learn from Zambia. This, I think, brings a lot of joy to me as a member of parliament. The other challenge which I saw in my constituency was that crossing points, children were failing to cross over when it is during the rain season. So now I had to ensure that we came up with doing bridges because those were the main challenges. The time free education is being there, but then there's a particular period when the children were missing out of school. So I had to go in and make sure that we have done very good crossing points. I think if you went into Lundazi, you find that at Kapodo there is a crossing point because children were failing to go to cross over during the rain season. And apart from that, even in like Mutuanjovu, people were failing to cross. They were literally cut off, and they knew to say when rains start, children stop going to school. So I had to look at those areas, and as I'm speaking, I'm a very happy member of parliament because now we are going to be able to allow our children to cross over and be able to learn throughout the year.
How is your constituency doing, pupil-teacher ratio? I know Dr. Kalila just talked about, and Alice also did talk about the enrollment of teachers last year, but how are we doing in Lundazi Central?
Thank you so much. We have received quite a number of teachers. However, the numbers are still very low. I think there was a study which was undertaken recently, and it is showing that Lundazi has got very few nurses, and it has also got very few teachers. We still have community schools where teachers, they are just doing voluntary work. And as a member of parliament, I have to part away maybe with some small tokens to make sure that those teachers do not leave and they continue offering that service. So you'll find that my request at the moment is to make sure that wherever there are children who are being taught, there is need for us to send a trained teacher so that the pupils can be able to benefit from what is obtaining. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was we're always talking about girls, 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 but I realized that there were a lot of teenage fathers in my constituency. Why? It's because even boys, they get tired just like girls. So we came up with a boarding facility. We are done, actually. The boarding facility is done because boys were always going home, whilst girls were remaining in Mwase. So Mwase Day now has got a boarding facility for boys because our boys were always getting into the nearby villages to go and live whilst we're taking care of the girls. I realized that if we lose the boy child, we may not have MPs to come as boys next time because you see what has been set as a bar is someone has to be in grade 12. My only appeal is that we need to look at our curriculum. There is need for us to review some of the things which we are teaching our children because some of them, they are not making them to become self-reliant. They always have to look out and ask for a job.
But you have an opportunity, Honorable, to push in amendments, being privileged to be at National Assembly. So when are we seeing you making such amendments?
Thank you very much. We have drafted something, and by next week we should be putting up something. We need to have our children get the education which will make them survive, because that is one of the results of Go number 4. It is talking about, you see, having an education which can sustain them in a particular area. So for me, I would want my children or my people in Lundazi to get an education which can make them survive in an agricultural area than for you to teach them about Zinjanthropus, and yet they need to learn how they should be able to, utilize the soil which is in their place.
Before I move on to Ms. Alice, Doc, I did ask Honorable Nyirenda the pupil-teacher ratio in Lundazi Central, but how are we doing in Lukulu East? Just quickly.
Yeah, so it's First of all, it must be, for us in the caucus, before I speak about my constituency, we are very happy at the strides which government is making by ensuring that they put education at the center of development. You know, education is an equalizer. It's not only that, it's also an enabler to be able to impart knowledge and skills to citizens to solve their own problems. So we're very excited about that, and we have noted the interventions that are going on. Okay, the first intervention, as you know, at the change of government was the introduction of free education policy, which speaks to SDG, one of the, in fact, the first target, okay, is universal secondary and primary school education. So that on that score alone, it is extremely very exciting and welcome for us. Now, in order to, the fact that that was pronounced, it has created an influx of learners who previously did not go to school on account of lack of resources by their parents and so on. And of course, that has brought also some other attendant issues that needs to be attended to. One of them is, of course, you need to teach, so you must have teachers. And as my colleagues have said, we saw a bullet recruitment of 30,000. That was meant as one of the first steps to address the teacher-pupil ratio which you are talking about. And we have seen also subsequently to that, every year there's an additional recruitment that has been pronounced to that. So this step is meant to do that. So out of these teachers, a lot of them, in fact, there has been some distribution all around the country to the constituencies, and even Lukulu has been a recipient of some of these teachers. But they are not enough, okay? They are not enough because of the fact that there's a population increase, the number of learners now, and we are, as members of parliament, we continue building more and more schools, so we still need more teachers. I don't have the exact figure, but all I can tell you is that there has been a marginal improvement, and more can be done.
All right, the number that we're using, if you wish to be part and parcel of today's program, feel free, is 078-772801. Shortly, I'll be reading the text messages that you've been sending in. And let me move on to Ms. Saili. We know that SDG 4 has 10 targets which are measured by 11 indicators and 7 outcomes. How is Zambia doing in realizing this very important goal?
Thank you, Paulson. As indicated earlier, there's still some challenges around meeting the targets or actually the indicators that have been set, which are quite ambitious around SDG 4. I also want to mention again that this is not only for Zambia. It's really globally, countries have challenges in meeting the indicators because of the situation, mainly because of COVID-19 and other economic challenges that countries have had. And for Zambia, there's also the debt situation, the climate change issues, as well as the war in Ukraine and Russia, which also reduced funding that was coming in for educational programs. What is important and what we want to focus on is the positive commitment by government, but also the cooperating partners who come in to try and support the government in meeting the targets that have been set for SDGs. I want to mention that when you look at the 8th National Development Plan, it's well aligned to the SDG targets. So even whatever Zambia is doing in the education sector, actually, they're trying to ensure that they meet the 2030 agenda that has been set. We're right in the middle of the 2030 agenda with exactly 7 more years to go. There is an opportunity to actually get back to the table and look at those key strategies that can help the country to really try and see how we can rescue the situation. And that is why, as the UN family, we are working very hard with government to try and support them to meet those targets, as well as other cooperating partners working in the education sector.
Do we have enough time to realize those targets? Because 2030 is not far, and all nations are supposed to make sure that they realize these goals, if possible.
There's still 7 years to go. There's a lot of progress that can be made. And with the free education policy, the recruitment of teachers, the infrastructure developments that the MPs are talking about, the building of more schools, all those strategies that are being implemented will go a long way in helping the country to realize those targets. So we are quite optimistic and still very positive to work towards those targets. and the government commitment is really quite high, and that is quite something that is positive, that can help the country to realize those targets. And that is why there was this very important meeting where world leaders had gone to attend in New York to see how can they really meet the targets given the 7 years that are remaining to reach the 2030 agenda. Some key issues that were coming out, sharing of experiences by different countries on how they plan to meet the targets. And Zambia was also in attendance, so we are quite optimistic in trying to make some positive strides in achieving the targets.
Let's get to your messages and find out what you are writing and what you'd want to find out from my guest today. And my guest on today's program, I do have Ms. Alice Saili, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, team leader in Zambia. I also have Dr. Christopher Kalila, who is Lukulu East Member of Parliament, who is also chairperson of the committee of the All-Party Parliamentary Caucus on Sustainable Development Goals. And indeed, we have Ms. Brenda Nyirenda, Member of Parliament for Lundazi Central Constituency. Let's see some of the messages from Facebook page. I do have Destiny Katoto watching from Zambia. Appreciate Destiny. Also have Boniface Chitushi from Kalumbila and you're joining us and saying you're enjoying the program and learning a lot from SDG 4. Also have Twambo Hanene watching from Namwala. Thank you so much, Twambo. Grant B. Mulenga, you are within Lusanko. Appreciate for your viewership. Rejoice Midimo Mulevela from Kalomo. Thank you so much. Robert Musenge watching from Kasumba. Feel free to send in your questions that you feel like sending on our Facebook page, the National Assembly of Zambia. We do have one text message which has come through, and let's see. And this one reads, free education has really helped us. Let the government work on pupil-teacher ratio. And I'm sure Doc and did ably touch on that one as well. So feel free to utilize your number that you're using for text messages. For SMS is 0978 778201. And like I mentioned, we're looking at a very important goal, and this is goal number 4, which is quality education. Let's talk about, you did talk about how Zambia is faring in achieving goal number 4. I also talked about the 10 targets. Now, Ms. Saili, do you think Zambia will be able to achieve SDG number 4 by 2030? And I'm sure you really briefly, you did talk about it, but as UNESCO, how are you helping the country in achieving this very important goal that you talked about?
So as UNESCO and the specialized agency that works in the education sector, but also we are supporting the reporting on SDG 4. We are helping government to look at the different targets that are set. So even when we talk about universal access to primary and secondary education, we're trying to help the education sector to ensure that they have a good education management and information system to be able to track the numbers of the learners who are in school, and that way it will be important, to be helpful, to be able to plan adequately for them. There's a lot of, we still have some gaps around data, and UNESCO and other cooperating partners are actually trying to help the government to ensure that, we have quality data, around learners in the schools and other needs that are required by the learners to be able to help us plan.
Okay.
From UNESCO's point of view, we also want to ensure that the teachers who are trained, are of high quality and are able to deliver quality learning. And that is why, through one of our projects, which is CFIT, supported by China, we've tried to procure high-tech equipment, that is in some colleges of education, but even other colleges are able to tap in from it, so that teachers are also able to use digital platforms to be able to deliver quality learning to the learners. We also try and support materials development, and right now I'm happy Honorable Brenda there talked about the curriculum, revision of the curriculum. Right now the government, through the Ministry of Education, is actually reforming the whole curriculum. It's a really huge undertaking to ensure that, what learners will be learning is current and also speaking, to the digital world that we're living in, to ensure that they are coming up with skills that are able to utilize even if they're not able to work in this, formal space, they can still have skills that can help them, to sustain themselves and contribute to economic development. They've made a lot of progress in the curriculum reform, and the Ministry of Education was actually recently sending an update to cooperating partners on where they are, and they are doing quite a good job to ensure that they completely overhaul the curriculum. So that's also speaking to SDG 4, because it's about inclusive, equitable, quality, and lifelong, learning.
Okay.
I also want to mention that when we talk about inclusive education, we're not leaving out the learners with special needs. Those are actually also have to be, carried along. So how are we dealing as a country with those learners who have special needs? That's something that is also being worked on in trying to reach SDG 4. And as UNESCO, we also support that component, looking at our learners with special needs, so that we ensure that they also receive that quality learning that we're trying to achieve through SDG 4.
Okay.
So if countries don't come up with strategies in the next few years to achieve the targets, it is estimated that only 1 in 6 countries will be able to meet the SDG 4 targets by 2030. We want Zambia to be one of the 6. It's quite ambitious, but the good thing is that there's commitment, from the partners, from the government, and also from the members of parliament that we have. So what we're doing now is to see how that can be work, collectively, to see how we can help meet those targets. Very ambitious, but the commitment is there, and that's positive.
Dr. Kalila and Honorable Nyirenda, you did talk about some of the accomplishments that you've scored in your various constituencies. But one area which is neglected is early childhood education. And I'm sure people, a lot of decision makers, they concentrate much on tertiary education, primary and secondary education, as well, forgetting about early age. What are you doing to make sure that these toddlers are also catered for in realizing goal number 4?
Thank you very much for that. Actually, Miss Alice, thank you so much for what you have said. We need to really know how many pupils enroll, how many remain in school, and how many complete, because that is very important. Us coming from a rural constituency, I'll tell you that we are doing quite well in terms of early childhood education. We have only 1 teacher at every school who is offering early childhood education. And we know that if the foundation is destroyed, there is nothing else that you can do. So the building blocks, they really have to be done, especially at the basic level. What is maybe exciting is that the people in rural constituencies now have realized that there is no need of keeping a small baby or a child at home. As long as they are 4 years and they are 5 years, they are sending them to school so that they can also have time to go and attend to their farm work and do a lot of other things. For me as a teacher, I find that to be a very good opportunity, because some time ago, parents you keep the children until when they are 7 years old. That's the time they would release them to go to school. But I'm proud that today, even if you go to Chigona, me and my parents there, we have, before we built even the 1x3 classroom block, we have built a classroom for just the early learners, which is very good. For me, as a member of parliament, I feel excited to be involved in the development of the young one, because I know that then the future is set. Okay. So what is happening at the moment is, we know that even if we are saying there is, this CDF, it cannot cater for everyone. I would want to tell you that CCAP, as a church, they have also come in using donors from outside the country. They have just finished building for us some classroom blocks. So meaning that we have been able to engage the church is also involved. Even as the Catholic is helping us to drill boreholes in those schools where we are offering schools, maybe classrooms for learners. The church also, as the Catholic, they have also come in to help us to drill boreholes, because the children cannot manage to remain in school for a long time if water is not available. So I would want to say that we are doing very well, though the problem that we have is accommodation. You'll find that maybe at a school there will only be two houses. It's very difficult for the learners or for the teachers to remain within the schools. So you find that they have to go and travel a long distance and then come again in the morning because of the minimum resources that we have at hand.
Before I get to the messages, I'll allow Dr. Kalila just to come in, more especially the question that I asked Honorable Nyirenda regarding early childhood education in your constituency. And as a caucus, you being the chairperson of the SDG caucus here at Parliament.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to speak to one of the issues that Alice, before I address your question, you asked her whether as a country we are on course to meet the targets. I want to agree more with her that, first of all, from the caucus point of view, we do not think that we will be meeting the targets by 2030 on account of the fact that we only have 7 years to go, but we are on the right track. So we are doing very well, we are on the right track, but we may not meet the targets. And this goes globally. Okay, if you look at, if you look at the, from
optimistic.
She's very optimistic, but I'll tell you from globally, I mean, recently we had a global meeting with our colleagues worldwide at other parliamentarians where we reviewed all this, and we had Professor Sachs who spoke globally about where the countries are likely to be by 2030, and it is very clear that they are all lagging behind. And in 7 years, it is unlikely that they can achieve what they have failed to achieve in the last 10, 15 years or so. But by and large, for Zambia, we are on the right track, especially the fact that you have seen what is happening. The pronouncement of free education underscores the fact that government realizes the importance of education as the bedrock and being at the center of sustainable development. All the interventions that are going on are actually trying to catch up. So it's pretty much like you are playing a game of football and you are 5-0 down and there's 10 minutes to go.
But we have facilities
and
that
you have 10 minutes to go.
So
what we are doing, so what we are doing now,
in the next 10 years,
do
we have facilities. Do we have secondary schools? Do we have tertiary institutions that will respond to the massive enrollment that we've seen in the recent past?
And this is exactly where I was going to. The fact that we have all these interventions, teacher recruitment, policy changes to support all these, the rollout of desks, which we didn't even talk about, the increased CDF, the funding, all these are government's attempts and resolve to try and bridge the gap and catch up. Because remember that there's a new administration and we are coming from somewhere else. So all these are attempts to catch up, to equalize, but there are gaps. Of course, the progression rate from, first of all, from primary to secondary is very low, and also in terms of the access to tertiary institutions like universities and so on, is still very low, although we have a liberal policy that has seen a mushrooming of so many private institutions, whether at college, whether at university, all these attempts at bridging the gap. Now, the reason why we may not meet the targets by 2030, although we are on the right track and we are doing very well, which is commendable, is simply because in order to do all these things, which we should have mentioned, you need money. You need a lot of money to do all these things. And currently, money is a problem. That's number one. So we need to reform the international financial systems through which we make money available for development, both in country and international. Then secondly, you also know that we have had a major challenge of COVID-19, climate change. You also know that currently there is this war going on. So all these have had a serious knock which has taken to slow us down.
Okay.
First, as parliamentarians, we need to begin to advocate that this war must end now. Okay, whatever it is, there's no need to say, oh, which side is which side. The point is we don't need war. It is acknowledged that war has a negative effect on the way we live our lives.
Let-
So
let-
we
let's
must
ma-
end.
Let's get back to my earlier question regarding childhood
Yeah,
education.
so childhood education definitely is one of the targets, as you know, and we have, by policy pronouncement, is also some of the things that we are doing. Of course, it is not at the same scale as we are doing to primary and secondary education. It's still relatively very new. We still don't have enough teachers who are trained in early childhood, particularly in the rural areas. Maybe here in the urban centers is a little bit much more pronounced than we have. You know, for us, we have one village here, 4 on that side, and fewer here. But what we are doing is to begin to jump on the bandwagon. So we are also ensuring that at every school, we take into consideration early childhood education. And like my colleague has said, we also have seen the support of the church. We have seen the support also of partners who are also come on board to begin to do this. So we need a holistic approach. We need a lot of money. We need to improve the environment for everything in order to achieve in the next 7 years. We're actually at the halfway mark from 2015, and the studies are showing that we are all lagging behind.
Okay, let's read some of the text messages before Saidi comes in. Let's see who has sent what text message. And we do have one text message, and this one reads, please, there is need to work on curriculum as quickly as possible. That's Lunganda, all the way from Mukushi. Thank you so much, Lunganda from Mukushi, and I'm sure Lundazi Central Member of Parliament did speak to that. Chungu, okay, I didn't read that one. Thank you so much, Chungu, also for sending in that text message. We have David Zimba, you're watching from Ndola. Thank you so much, we appreciate. And Ephraim Emeritius Chimbani, watching all the way from Lua in Angola. We also have Oscar Mioba watching from Lusaka. Pija, otherwise, appreciate for your text message. And these are messages that are coming via our Facebook page. You wanted to come in regarding early childhood education.
Yes,
again.
yes, I did.
Quickly.
So the policy on early childhood is also really a positive commitment in meeting SDG 4, because that's one of the targets. And when you look at early childhood education, it is so important because that helps to prepare the children as they get into grade 1. They already have some of those skills. They already have, to help them be able to understand whatever they'll be learning. And that will also improve the reading proficiency levels, because currently, when you look at the rates for Zambia, the reading proficiency by the end of primary education is less than 50%. So you see that we have children who finish primary school, but they can't read. And that will affect their progression rate. When we look at the completion rates for grade 9, I think by the latest EMIS bulletin that we're using, that is the Education Management Information System data, completion rate at grade 9 stands at 61%, and then it reduces to, at grade 12, it becomes 32%. That's quite low, and that is why with this initiative of the policy of free education, that will really improve it, because some of these completion rates were being affected because of not having fees to pay, the examination fees, the user fees, and all the other fees that were there. So we are hopeful that that will increase. We may not reach the targets, but certainly there will be quite some notable progress that will be made, and that is actually something that we should be happy about. So for early childhood, it's really something that is important. And from the UN family, we do have UNICEF that is really doing some extensive work to support governments to ensure that they sustain the work they're doing in early childhood, but also expand the schools that are providing early childhood education. So even if UNESCO is working on SDG 4 and is a specialized agency that works on education, we still have other UN agencies that support government in meeting these targets. So there's UNICEF, we have UNHCR, we have ILO that is trying to support the target on skills development. We also have UNFP as well supporting some components. We know that we want the girls to be kept in school, but the levels of girls who drop out of school due to pregnancy is very high. And that is why for UNESCO as well as UNFPA, we have this program that we try to ensure that we support the keeping of girls in schools through the provision of education that will help them to make informed decisions and choices about their health, but also empower them with skills that they remain in school and complete their secondary education.
I've only a minute or so before we wind up today's program, but maybe I'll get to you, the two honorable members that I have. What are some of the key challenges your respective constituents are facing in terms of children and young people accessing quality and equitable education? And maybe the question is, what is being done to address these challenges that I know you've highlighted quite a number of challenges that you're facing?
Thank you so much, Posant. I would want to speak to the issue of feeding programs. Feeding programs in my constituency are helping the children to remain in school. But you find that the donors like Mary's Meals, those who are giving porridge to the children to remain in school, there's coming a time they are leaving. They will not be there forever. So what is keeping the children in school is because they are able to go and eat, then they can, sustain. Even you can't be here if you have not eaten. So I see that as one of the things which can cause a serious challenge. And already, if the donor is showing signs that they want to leave, there is need for the government to take up that program so that they can be in a position to continue. On a positive note, we have a lot of reserves of teachers who are trained during the Patriotic Front term. Or what is needed is to employ. Right now, even if we didn't train any teachers, there's already a big reserve of teachers who are waiting to be put on the payroll, meaning that government, it's a going concern. The other part, they trained a lot of university graduates, they trained a lot of teachers. What is remaining is now for the country to look at resources. The poverty levels at the moment and the hunger situation in our country is a threat, actually, to this quality education. And I would want to talk about our children who are living with, who are disabled. You'll find that we do not have wheelchairs, we do not have other walking aids. And you'll find that maybe a child will be having a problem. They want to sit next to the board just for them to see. We do not have health people who can go into school and be able to assess what is the site for these children. So you'll find that it takes for the teacher to red flag and say, okay, maybe you need to start wearing spectacles. Okay. So those are some of the issues that we need to look into, and then we can work on those, and then at the end of the day, we can be able to achieve some of these goals that we have set for us.
Yeah, so I will not, first of all, I will adopt the same challenges, but of course that comes to mind, which everybody knows about. Some of the key challenges at the moment, schoolgirl dropouts as a result of pregnancies. You see those obviously are impacting negatively on the march for some of our girls to advance. We still have a high rate of early marriages. I'm sure you all know about this. So all these are actually an impediment to try and achieve. We still have, particularly for those of us in the rural areas, long distances to some of the schools, which is what we are trying to address through the construction of these. The teacher-pupil ratio is still very high. So again, we've seen government is trying to address these things. But from the caucus point of view, we would like to urge government to expedite the process of some of these policy documents being reviewed. We know that even this policy on education was by way of presidential pronouncement, which is very well, and everybody is doing their utmost best to ensure that we realize the goals, the targets, the indicators under SDG number 4. But we would like this to be put on paper. We are still using the 1996 Educating Our Future policy, which is a very old policy, but we have also been made aware that there's a review process going on, except it's taking too long. It's 2 years now. We would like the process to complete so that all these things that are happening are put on paper. The importance of this is that if there's, nothing remains permanent. So we would like this thing to be permanent so that even if there's a change of government in future at whatever stage, probably in 2050, at least they should also continue doing exactly, because this is a good thing. We would also like the curriculum review, which is going on, we've been told, to be expedited so that we begin to make education relevant, which speaks to SDGs. Then we also want the 2011 Education Act I'm not too sure about that. We are yet to find out if there's any amendments or review which is being thought about. We've just heard about this thing. So as policy makers, we are interested more on some of these policies to be expedited so that everybody moves along, and we know as a country, all of us, regardless of political affiliation, because this is a good thing, that this is the way we have chosen our country to move.
Doc, thank you so much. I'm afraid we need to end here, but before we conclude, your concluding remarks regarding SDG for quality education.
Just to appreciate the commitments that government continues to make in meeting the targets. So has the UN and cooperating partners that also support the education sector, there is that commitment to support government. And there is, the curriculum reform, the free education, the infrastructure development that is happening. All these are really positive. So we now have to work on the quality. So while we have many children who are in school but want to ensure that they're getting quality education, and we will continue to support government as the UN to see how far we can reach in attaining the SDG 4 targets by 2030. We may not meet them, but definitely we'll push hard to ensure that, we support government in seeing how far they can go. So collectively, I think we can work together to see how much progress we can make. There is a positive commitment.
Honorable Nyirenda, your concluding remarks regarding SDG 4, more especially for the people of Lundazi Central.
Thank you so much. My own submission would be the issue of retaining the teachers. Once teachers are employed in rural areas, they always want to flight back and get into, town. This is because there is no power in my constituency. You find that we are not connected to the national grid. We can't even teach ICT. So you find that some of the areas, yes, we are trying solar here and there, but there is need for us to be connected to the grid so that we can be able to appreciate some of the information. I know children are learning, even just by switching on the phone, they can be able to learn a lot of things. The other thing I'd want to talk about is, please do not allow your girl child not to go back to school just because they have been impregnated. There is a policy to take your child back to school so that they can also become members of parliament the way I am. I submit.
All right, thank you so much. Doc, you're wearing two hats.
Yes.
Being Lukulu East Member of Parliament and chairperson for the caucus on SDG.
Okay, so I will start with the caucus on SDGs. We believe that it's a very important caucus because the work that members of parliament do borders exactly on what we do in the caucus. All chairmen ideally are members of this caucus, but regrettably we have not been able to attend the United Nations General Assembly, which was happening last week, and there was a very, very important meeting on the 18th and 19th on the Sustainable Development Goals. The Secretary General brought a proposal to all our heads of state and countries to try and give a fresh push and impetus to these SDGs, because there was a slight knock as a result of what we've already highlighted. So we would like to believe that those resolutions, we are yet to see them. I'm sure that those of our colleagues who have attended, we couldn't find sponsors, will bring us to speed with the resolution, and particularly through the UN system, the UNDP, so that as members of parliament we can begin to track the commitments which our countries have signed up at this recently ended UN meeting. That's the first point. The second point is we are waiting eagerly on Friday as the national budget to be presented to see exactly how much will go to education and in particular to which programs. The third point I want to make is a positive one, that definitely as a country we are on the right track in the education sector by putting it first. If you look, SDG number 4 is high on the priority list. It's coming number 4. The first three are basically physiological, ending hunger, poverty, and health. Then you come to education. And as a country, we have domesticated that. We've put it in the National Development Plan. We are running with it. So we are extremely very excited about that. And we would like to obviously applaud the efforts of government as they do that. As members of parliament, we stand ready to support. When you add to the fact that there is also this decentralization that has happened by way of CDF, where ourselves have also to craft programs. And so far, almost all of us are running with the same SDG number 4. Even in the House, many questions basically border on SDG number 3 and number 4. Members ask about why the teachers are like this, there are no schools there, you don't have learning materials here, and so on and so forth. So basically, we are on the right track.
Doc, thank you so much for that, and I'd like to say thank you to Honorable Brenda Nyirenda as well, Lundazi Central Member of Parliament, for making an appearance on today's program.
Thank you.
Lois, thank you so much also for, and that's Alice, for being with us today on SDG and You radio program. I'd like to say thank you so much for finding time and being with us. Viewers and our listeners out there, thank you so much. Really appreciate for your listenership and viewership. Remember, this program is both live on television and radio. And those of you that have participated by way of sending in your text messages, we really appreciate your input to today's program. We're looking at SDG number 4, which is quality education. My name is Paul Sentendo. We'll be back next week on Wednesday as we look at yet another interesting goal along those 17 sustainable development goals. Keep watching Parliament and listening to Parliament Radio as well.